is an in-depth look at Punjab and Delhi in particular. Thank you. I'd like to call on stage Prabhu Guptara, who's going to be the moderator for the session. He's a board consultant, founder and publisher of Salt Desert Media Group, and publisher of Piparan Groups.
Thank you, Prateek. It is a great pleasure and privilege to be here this morning with all of you. And I want to invite Devender, Yadav, if he's here. I assume he is. Please do come up to the stage. So Devender ji is president of the Delhi Congress Committee. He is also in charge of... Very nice to meet you, sir. Please. He's also in charge of the Punjab Congress Committee, and he's, in addition to that, a member of the National Congress Working Committee. So responsible not just for the local strategies and operations in both Delhi and Punjab, but also, of course, contributing to the strategy and policies at the national level.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta.
So, Devender ji, to start us off, if you don't mind, may I request you to turn your thoughts to the first speech that Rahul Gandhi gave in Parliament as leader of the opposition, which has been described as a blistering speech. One thing about that speech that you really liked, and one thing that you thought could have been done perhaps a little better?
Thank you, Mr. Gupta, but it's been a pleasure being here with you all, first of thing. And yes, the first speech by Mr. Rahul Gandhi was one we all expected, because over a period of a long time, this was the first speech which came as a voice of the people, basically. And why I'm saying the voice of the people is because he traveled all around India as part of Bharat Jodo Yatra and eventually the Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra. So all the experience came into that speech. And I'm happy Rahul ji was good enough to indict Mr. Modi, who has always been speaking about his Man Ki Baat. This was the first speech which came as the people's voice rather than the Man Ki Baat of Mr. Rahul.
So specifically, one thing that you really thought was good. Generally, of course, Man Ki Baat, in the sense of people's Man Ki Baat, it's your point of view, that's good. But one specific thing that you really liked, which you thought he presented very well, which is a very good point to pick up?
Look, Mr. Gupta, what I actually said is that Congress has always been of the thought that we listen to the people, we take along the feelings of the people, and we give a chance to every person equally, if not equally, at least the person sitting at the last, we also be heard. And that's what one thing that Rahul ji had emphasized on, that we will be, since now it's a good opposition number that we have, and we'll be talking about people in general. We'll be talking about the issues that are faced by India.
So the fact that he was representing, as it were, the desires, the wishes, the needs of the average person was one thing that you appreciated. Very good. And one thing that you thought could have been done better in that speech?
Yes, there's always a scope for improvement. And as far as I remember, what we can say is that let me think.
Bilkul. हिंदी में कह
Because-
दीजिए, कोई ऐसी बात नहीं।
It's perfectly okay, but only thing is कि yes, we need basically it's more about
So let me then change the question and go on to my next question, if you don't mind. The elections have been interpreted as being a humbling of Mr. Modi, and it has been described as being unexpected. The results were described as being unexpected. Were they really unexpected on your side?
not really, because we have always been saying कि this 400 pass, 400 par, the nara that was
400
given by
seats.
Mr. Modi,
Yes.
was always unrealistic, and that was just to give an impression to the people that we are in a comfortable position. But somewhere down the line, according to the understanding of a party, we were very much confident about these results that came in. And yes, this is one result which has humbled Mr. Modi, who has always been talking about Man Ki Baat.
So the question that arises naturally is that if the India alliance had come together, let us say 3 months earlier than it did, or 6 months earlier than it did, generally speaking, the assessment is India alliance would have done even better. Why did it not come together till so late in the election campaign?
In politics, this is timings, yes, does matter, but it's also, a matter of a lot of parties involved, the thought process of those parties as such, and the ideologies different. Definitely, these parties come from different ideologies as well. So bringing them together was a challenge. But yes, we did it, and the results are in front of us.
So Modi ji had, of course, the slogan of 400 seats. And one of the challenges with any tyranny, with any kind of situation where there is not the kind of freedom of expression you would like to see in a democracy, is that the ruler gets out of touch with the people. And this is the main problem with tyrannies as against democracies. The great advantage of a democracy is that everybody is free to express their opinion, so you don't lose touch with dissenters. You don't lose touch with what is really happening on the ground. Question, did Modi ji and his party lose touch with what was really happening? Were they out of touch with reality?
Definitely they did, and when they're talking about 400 par, as I've already said, 400 par was one thing which they wanted to achieve as such, because they wanted to change the very essence of democracy, the constitution as such. And as far as your question arises, is that had they really lost the touch? Yes, I personally feel they had lost the touch, and that was more because in today's India, you must have observed very well, most of the voice that is being heard is only one gentleman, and no other voice can be heard in this democracy. So this one person who has took over literally over the media as well as the social media, and the person is talking about his Man Ki Baat rather than listening to the Man Ki Baat of the people. So that definitely has lost the touch among the people and the person they have elected for the country, basically.
Good. So the question arises, of course, in India, the mainstream media are clearly under Mr. Modi's control, have been under Mr. Modi's control. The foreign media, of course, have not. And we have seen a situation where the foreign media have also tried, Mr. Modi has tried to muzzle the foreign media. For example, when the BBC documentary came out, in January, February, and the reaction to that, the raid on the BBC and so on. Now, the result of the raid on the BBC was that the BBC has reached a deal with the Modi government in which the Indian language reporting has been taken out of the editorial control of the BBC and put in the hands of an Indian majority-owned company. So all the BBC reporters have been taken out of BBC's control and put in this company, which has not been discussed in the British Parliament. This is a deal that is potentially, at least it could be so alleged, in violation of the BBC Charter, which is of course a matter for the BBC and a matter for the national authorities here, may or may not be taken up, that's a different issue. But in terms of the Indian government and going forward, how do you as a party view this deal, and what is your view about the coverage of India going forward, both by Indian media and by foreign media?
Look, the question which arises from your question is, yes, the way these deals are being taken care of, this is not good for the democracy as such. And whatever the voice of the people is, should be heard, whether it's in India, and it all the more becomes the responsibility of the foreign media as well to take up those issues when we come from the biggest democracy in the world. So yes, the people's voice should be heard, people's voice should be heard in the parliament, in the media, on the roads, and we have been trying hard for this ever since, especially when Rahul Gandhi ji has especially planned a few of his visits to foreign, wherein he has been interacting with the foreign media. So yes, we need cooperation of the foreign media as well, apart from the, yes, the Indian media, as you rightly said, is very much compromised under an umbrella of one big giant corporate house. So we can't expect much out of that, but...
So my specific question to you is, what plans does your party have to reverse that? It's all very well to decry what has happened so far, but unless you have very specific plans to reverse that, the situation will continue. And we must not forget that it was under your party that the control of the media first started during the national emergency. So the foundations that Modi ji built on were not new foundations that he established or his party established. The foundations were actually established by the Congress party during the emergency under Mrs. Gandhi. So unless you have specific plans to reverse that, the situation will continue. And in a few years from now, we will be sitting and talking to maybe another party, or certainly a different representative, maybe, and the situation will still be the same. So what specific plans do you have to reverse the trends, both in terms of Indian ownership of the Indian-controlled media and in terms of foreign media in India? What specific plans do you have?
Look, as I've earlier said, most of the media, especially in India, is controlled by one family. They are under one umbrella. But as soon as these elections are over, we got a good mandate about a strong opposition. Things are a bit changing over there as well. Yes, the social media again is quite compromised when we talk about Facebook, when we talk about WhatsApp, or when we talk about other Instagrams and all. They are also being compromised by these forces which are ruling India as of now. Rahul ji and our leaders have been traveling abroad. They have been interacting with the foreign media as well. And this is what we expect. We expect some changes as such. Apart from that, yes, people in general have their views. They are very much vocal nowadays. They use their own tools to actually voice their voice. So yes, over the time, we intend to be more on the roads. We intend to raise more and more issues of the people. And this is how we can combat this situation as of now.
So Modi ji, of course, has his majority not in his own right, but because of the support of not just two major parties, but a whole string of other minor parties. Even with the support of the two major parties apart from his own, the Telugu Desam Party and the Janata Dal United JDU, even with those two parties, he would not have the majority. It's only because of a string of other minor parties that he has his majority. And in India, you know, and I know that the loyalty of people is very fickle. And people change sides probably more, or at least almost as frequently as Mr. Modi changes his clothes. So why do you think that the Modi majority cannot be reduced, or what are you doing to reduce the majority? And can you perhaps, by defections from other parties, have a majority in the foreseeable future, even within the term of this parliament?
Mr. Gupta, I personally feel we are more concerned about the issues of the people. I'm less concerned whether Mr. Modi would last 5 years or not. But yes, we are of the thought process. We will be raising the voice of poor, the voice of underprivileged, the voice of farmers. We are more concerned about that, and will definitely be voicing a strong voice for them in the coming days, as such.
One of the big issues, of course, in the country is corruption. So we had our previous session, which was about what is happening economically and what is possibly going to happen economically. The next session is also about growth. But somebody of my age has seen these stories about India as a growth story from the 1960s. And now, 80 years later, we are still seeing the same kind of stories about the growth story of India. And when we analyze why India has not achieved its potential, one of the key issues, of course, is corruption. The same issue which is behind the way in which people change parties is the issue behind the lack of growth, one of the key factors behind lack of growth in India, corruption. Now, Modi ji has cleaned up a lot of the petty corruption, not all, but a lot of the petty corruption in India. And the perception is that this has been centralized. So there's now grand corruption. And this is, of course, again, a development of tendencies that started under Mrs. Indira Gandhi during the emergency. It's not new. It's a tendency that started then. And it's a tendency that has just exploded under the current regime. At least that is the allegation that is made. So what specific plans, or do you have any specific plans, to reverse the trend that your party started under the previous emergency?
As we have been talking about Modi's government of the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of corruption happening in and around the states, in different states as well. Yes, they have been giving the protection to the corrupt people. We all know the kind of these constitutional agencies, the way Mr. Modi has been using them, whether it's CBI or ED or IT, they have been using against the people to just bring them to their fall. Corruption as such is not the priority of Mr. Modi, which I personally feel, with the actions that have been taken place in India over the last especially the last 5 years. Yes, we have to raise the voice. We will be raising the voice. We are in a much better position earlier. It was more of a negligible opposition as such. But now since the numbers have changed, and so is the situation. And we expect we will be having more stronger voice against these people. We will be having more strength to handle such situations. And yes, that's the only way out of that.
So it's good to hear you being optimistic, but let's also be realistic. The control that Modi ji has of the agencies you're mentioning, whether it's tax authorities, whether it's investigation authorities, whether it's police, whether it's army, whether it's Air Force, whether it's Navy, his control over these instruments of power, state instruments, is pretty strong. And his influence over the media is not less than it was at the time of the elections. So unless you have very specific plans, on the basis of which you can express some hope. And unless you have very specific strategies on the basis of which you can go forward, I do not see any realistic grounds for thinking that just because you're the largest opposition party, you will be able to have any more influence through the media, whether Indian or foreign.
As I earlier said, we are moving out, we are talking to the foreign media, we are talking to our own media. Apart from that, yes, people have to understand what's going on in the country. And the people's voice is more audible to people like Modi ji, maybe, because the way they have been misusing these agencies is not going to stop, you rightly said. But yes, we should be ready to go to jail, we should be ready to voice issues more vocally. We are planning, we did it in first session of this parliament. We had been quite vocal, we had raised those issues which were more relevant for the country as such. You must have noticed Mr. Modi has always avoided those issues to come up in parliament as such. Yes, we will be more, this is what I can say, we can be more stress. We can put more stress on those things. We can raise those issues. This is the only thing we can go ahead with.
So sections of Mr. Rahul Gandhi's speech, his first speech as leader of the opposition, were struck off the record. And there's been no comeback that your party's been able to have on that. And the reason your party has not been able to have any comeback on that is, of course, that the speaker is not on your side, shall we say. And as long as the speaker is not on your side, such actions will continue. So your voice will not be as clear and as loud as perhaps you think, even given your larger numbers.
I'm happy you are talking about those issues. That means those issues have reached to us, here, sitting here in UK as such. So yes, these are the things which we were expecting. And now that this conducive atmosphere is being, we can expect some more changes as well. Of course, the speaker is not on our side, but yes, we raised the objections. When he sponged our speeches, we had raised that. And I'm happy, as I've said, it has at least reached you people over here in the UK as well.
Good, thank you. Can I just check how many minutes more we have? 5, very good. Time for one question from the audience, and I see a hand over there. Please identify yourself. Can we have a microphone for this gentleman, please? Is there a microphone we can get to this gentleman? Thank you. Do please say your name before you ask your question as briefly as possible, preferably in 30 seconds, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Nitin Mehta. I am a NRI, born in Kenya, living here and going to India all the time. Prabhuji, I am actually surprised by the questions you have asked. You said that the foreign media is against Congress, and I am so surprised by that. The foreign media is completely and absolutely anti-Modi. Whether it's BBC, The Guardian, The Times, all the channels. I don't know where you got this theory from that, you know, they are pro-Modi. So that one needs to be answered. The second question about Rahul Gandhi's first speech. It concentrated on attacking Hindus, left, right, and center. It hurts ordinary Hindus like us for him to sort of imply that we are so hateful that we are hurting these minorities all the time. This is the kind of language will not win Congress party a majority ever, because the Hindus have now awakened.
Thank you. Thank you. That's quite clear.
Please change this direction of the
Thank you. It's
foreign
very
media
clear.
and Hindu antagonism.
Mehta ji, thank you. So, Devender ji,
I
what
would
is
like
your
to
response?
correct Mr. Mehta in the first place, because if you really had heard Mr. Rahul Gandhi, he was very particular about that Hindus are not such people who can ever expect violence, you can't expect violence from Hindus. You can't expect division from Hindus. Hindus had always been so receptive And the words that you have right now used, that was meant for BJP. BJP can't be the owner of Hinduism. Mr. Rahul Gandhi had strong objections about that, and because they had been playing the game of hatred, they have been playing the game of division among the society. Yes, Congress is very much against that. And Hinduism in itself says that we have to be together, we respect each other's feelings, and this is what Mr. Rahul Gandhi had actually meant.
Thank you. And as far as the question about foreign media is concerned, I was not saying that foreign media is anti-Modi or pro-Modi. I was saying the ability of the foreign media to report from India has been constrained, and that is a matter of public record. If people who are representing foreign media in India are leaving the country or are being kicked out of the country, which has been happening, then that is a matter of record. It's not a matter of opinion. But anyway, our 5 minutes, I think, are over. May I invite you, please, to thank Yadav ji for his very fascinating comments.
Thank you. Thank you.